Welcome to Module 4. We're close to the end here, so congratulations on making it this far. Let's finish strong here. This is the shortest module, but it is the most important, and it's the most reliant on, you guessed it, your work plan and your guide. Okay, so this is really where we're going to combine all the stuff that we've previously addressed into a nice package to help chart your path to success. Okay, so just to recap, in module number 1, we worked on building your personal brand and your identity and the mission statement and the intent and defining the vision. In number 2, we looked at the techniques and skills that you're going to use to leverage your personal brand and apply those to help move your career forward. In the previous module, number 3, we looked at techniques on how to primarily connect with people and build your network, build meaningful relationships, and that support system that's going to help push you in the right direction. And here we're going to identify very clearly the goals, the steps needed to get there, strengths and weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. Okay, so in detail, we're going to cover goal setting and the action plan. We're going to look at brand maintenance. We're going to look at the importance of continuous improvement. And finally, building your legacy, which sounds pretty grand, but it's important to keep the end goal in mind. So it's important to acknowledge here that, this is a 56-minute course, but the principles and the information that come out of it are really going to last a lifetime. So it's good that you took the time and effort and spent the money to go through this. But what's really important is the effort that you put in to maintain the progress and to make it a sustainable effort to continue to push your career up and onwards so you can become the best worker you can be. And again, just like the way we started, it's important now to recap on the vision and the goal and the position that you have in mind, what you're striving to attain. Always keep that in mind while defining the steps to get there. Okay, so let's get going on the final module. Okay, so very important to set goals and have an action plan to get there, because a goal without a plan to get there is just a dream. So it's nice to have aspirations. You might be starting out at the bottom now. You might be a coordinator or labor, and you have dreams to be a vice president or president one day. That's perfectly fine. Anything is possible, but you need to define the steps to get there and do the work to put it in, because you might have all the potential in the world. You might be the smartest person. If you can't communicate that effectively and you don't have the steps to get there, you're probably going to burn out because you're going to let yourself down and get discouraged. By taking small steps and developing milestones and identifying markers that when you've attained, you can look back and say, this is something I achieved. That's going to help to push you forward. Okay, so it's important to not only have the skills, but know how to develop them and the steps to get there. Okay, so I said it before, I'll say it again. You're probably getting annoyed at this point, but use your guide. So the guide has a very detailed section on this module number 4, and it breaks down goals into short, mid, and long-term goals. And it makes you think and helps you identify, is it attainable where you currently are? Do you need to move to a different place? What are the steps to get there? What are the barriers preventing from getting you there? Why it's important to develop short, mid, and long-term goals. As I mentioned before, it's great to have a long-term vision of the position that you want to attain, but there's steps in between that are going to get you there. Okay. Or if not, maybe you are not thinking big enough. So in that case, I would challenge you to think bigger and push yourself a little bit if you're comfortable with that. What you achieve by having short, mid, and long-term goals is you achieve a little bit of balance. If you set the bar too high, you're going to be constantly striving for something that may be unachievable, and you're going to get discouraged, and you're more likely to, not make it or give up. So give it some thought, make some notes, balance those short, mid, long-term goals, and really give some thought on how you're going to get there. Okay, you've probably heard the term SMART in terms of goal setting. So SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, so specific is important because if you say, "Oh, I want to get promoted," what do you want to get promoted to? What type of role? Even to the level of, what kind of salary do you want, or what kind of hourly wage do you want? By setting a crystal clear intention, it makes it easier for you to envision that and come up with a plan to achieve it. Okay. Measurable is important. Again, if you have a title or a certain salary range you're looking for, have it measurable, have it quantifiable so you can track your progress towards it. The A in SMART is for achievable. It has to be achievable. You can't, if you're just starting out your career, unless you plan on going and starting your own company, you're not going to be president in a year or 2 years. It's got to be, realistic, or else, you might be setting yourself up for failure there. R in SMART is for relevant. So it has to be relevant to, what you're doing now. For example, if you are a project coordinator now and you want to be a professional guitar player, there's not a big connection there. So the steps you take have to be relevant. If you are transitioning into a different stream, whether it's going from the field to the office or vice versa, you need to chart that. That is considered a pretty major change from a skill set perspective. So you need to chart that path and that trajectory and how you're going to get there. And lastly, in SMART, the T is for time bound. You're essentially building a schedule that you're shooting for. Because again, if you come up with a goal or you have a target in mind of getting promoted from a project coordinator to a project manager, is it going to be 1 year? Is it going to be 10 years? So set that for yourself and have something that you can track against. Make it actionable. So what I mean by that is provide steps on how to get from point A to point B. Don't set the bar super high and always be shooting for it. There's got to be a way that you can kind of make consistent effort. When you make a plan that, say, has 10 steps, by the time you get to the fourth or fifth step, you can look back and see what you've accomplished. Okay. Instead of taking one huge step and maybe stumbling and getting discouraged, if you have those small building blocks, so you do fall back, you don't fall as far. So it's easier to stay on track. So make it actionable with some steps. Revisit it periodically. Things always change. In the last module, we talked about adapting and overcoming. You're going to have to review this. With me, my personal goals and an action plan, I look at twice a year. So kind of every 6 months, I reevaluate and make sure I'm on track, or maybe I need to course correct, or maybe my aspirations have changed. So things evolve over time. It's not just a set it and forget it type of situation. Maintenance is important for both your brand and relationships. um, it's not usually one and done. You got to keep evolving. You have to keep changing. Landscapes change, workplaces change, people change, the management in your company might change, or if you go to a different site, you're part of a different crew, and you might have to adapt a little bit to the different scenarios. So you always have to be constantly evaluating and adapting. Again, it's important to stay within your limits and know your boundaries, know your core values, and stay true to those. Okay. Pivot as required, maintain relationships. This is number one. So make a habit of reaching out to people for no apparent reason. Okay. Because you can imagine, you probably have it too. When people call you and are like, oh, this guy's calling me, he just wants something or he needs something. Okay. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be the person that when your name shows up on their phone, they look forward to talking to you because you bring them up. And that comes down to maintaining relationships. It takes a little bit of time. You might not be a phone conversation person, but you can do texts or emails too. Just stay in touch with people, especially the important ones that you can provide value to, not just the ones that you're going to use for information or to further your career. Okay, so maintenance is important when keeping your career in mind. Continuous improvement is kind of a buzzword thrown around, but I wanted to include it in here because it is important. It's important to keep pushing yourself. It's important to show others that you are always working on bettering yourself and bettering the company. That's another way that you're going to distinguish yourself from others. So stay curious, ask questions, seek out new knowledge and trends. There's always so much evolving, especially, in the tech space, prefab, software, tools. So be at the forefront of that. It might not always be relevant, and you don't always want to push new technology on your company or your crew because you might overwhelm people and it might get annoying. But stay in the know. Be curious and see what's out there. Stay up to date on industry updates. So follow construction news, advancements, means and methods. There's lots of newsletters and online forums that you can get all the cutting edge stuff. So be known an expert in that field to help differentiate yourself from others. Keep learning. We mentioned it before. There's so much information that's required to conduct business in construction. You really can never stop learning. I have conversations with people who have been in the industry 30, 40 years, and they're still learning every day. It's not That doesn't happen through osmosis. It's an active process. So if you show interest and that you want to learn and you interact with people in that way as you're a curious student, they're going to be more than open to, sharing things with you, and they're going to recognize that ambition, that desire to learn and be better, and it's going to help you out in your career. So this can be, day-to-day interacting with people on sites, or it can be signing up for courses or different certifications or different trainings for, materials or construction management courses, stuff like that. Lastly, the very last thing we'll touch on here, and this is kind of circles back to what we started out with building the vision and setting the intentions, is the last thing I want to leave you with is think about what your legacy is going to be. Fast forward 5, 10, 20 years into the future. What are people saying about you? What's your story going to be? What impact do you want to leave on the industry? What impact do you want to leave on those around you? And again, just to circle back to the importance of relationships and dealing with others, there's a saying, a quote that I'll lean on here, that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Okay, that's going to be the impact that you leave on people, is your relationships. And I just want to drive that point home, that the relationships are super important in your story and your career. Giving back to others is a huge part. I was lucky enough to have a few mentors in my life and my career. I didn't realize it always at the time, but looking back now, there were definitely a few individuals who helped shape who I am today. So if you can be that positive influence on somebody else or multiple people, do it if you can. It takes a little bit of time, but the rewards you get out of it from developing people and developing other leaders and helping the industry, you can have a profound effect on others and the industry and yourself as well. It helps you grow. An important thing too is celebrating milestones. So this is true whether it's personally or, on site. I know any project I've been on, there's always a ton of milestones. Once you hit a milestone, you might have a topping off party and they order pizza and all that, but then it's back to business as usual. Take some time, let the wins sink in, celebrate your achievements, celebrate milestones, reflect on them, because it does take a lot of work to reach it, whether it's a milestone at work or a personal milestone that you're setting through this course. Okay. Be grateful that you have the opportunity to do this and celebrate the little wins and the big wins. And that's the conclusion of Module 4. So in this final module, we looked at the importance of goal setting, using your workbook, balancing short-term, mid-term, long-term goals, and coming up with the bigger picture and reminding yourself of the vision and building your legacy, and essentially writing the story that you want to be told 10, 20, or even 30 years into the future. So thank you for completing Module 4. The last portion is the conclusion, where we'll do a quick course recap. So we'll see you over there.